So just here before I give you a minute or two to kind of look at it. So this photo, we're thinking about outward stranger, and this is Spike, and Spike is an African tortoise that was rescued from the exotic pet trade. So he's from Africa, but he now lives in Texas at the, makes his home at the National Butterfly Center. So I'll give you a couple minutes here just to, in silence, to look at the picture and take note of what you are drawn to. The second question is to the second time to focus in on the place that you were drawn to and consider if it's a place of fear or a place of connection or a place of both. And then in a minute or two, we'll take comments in the chat. So I invite you, if you wish, to comment in the chat about whether you observed a place of fear or a place of connection. Thank you for your thoughts. After this third question, I'll ask if anybody wants to raise their hand and share. So moving to this idea of, if we're seeing Spike as a symbol of stranger, as someone who's come from another country, who's making their home, and in this case, he's at the National Butterfly Center among native plants and birds that are protected. Who or what are you afraid of when it comes to stranger? Or how are you connected to stranger, considering your experience of what you were drawn to of this in the picture? If anyone would like to share, can raise your hand.
Jeff, just a moment here. There you go.
Thank you, and I should be unmuted there. I think I took a wide view here. I had a definite sense of connection. What really homed in on me, and it's very unusual, I think, when we're engaging with another creature, whatever perspective, you tend to look at their eyes, but what drew me most were the almost eye-like patterns on the individual plates of his carapace, and then those of the tree stump that you see just on the right margin of the photo. And on each of those, you see a very similar pattern, and that is those growth rings that evolved over time. And I noticed that toward the center of each individual plate, that growth was relatively rapid and then slowed because they're closer together, and saw the same pattern on the tree stump. And it just struck me that though there are very differing forms of life at different stages, there are some shared commonalities between them. That concept of stranger really doesn't fit here, at least for me.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, for your comments. Great comments. Anybody else have another comment or another perspective?
I think Julie here. Julianne, there you go.
It struck me when I was first looking at this turtle, I thought, it's very dry where you are. And I tend to think of turtles being in places that are, overrun with water, put it that way, that they can get to water because they need water usually. I know not always. I know desert turtles and things like that. And I was looking at it going, I wonder, with the thought of desert, I wonder how do you need us as friends? It's like, I'm not afraid of you because turtles don't scare me. But I looked at it and went, what are you asking of me? Okay. The heavy realization came with just the last comment. I've met this turtle. I have been to the Butterfly Center. I remember this turtle. I have my own picture of this turtle. And so it really struck me. It's like, this guy's not even a stranger to me. I know her. I've met her. And right now I'm feeling incredibly guilty because I didn't do more to protect her habitat and where she lives.
Thanks, Julianne.
Thank you for your comment.
Mm-hmm.
And Judith, one moment here. I'll find your name. There you are.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Yeah, this is a little bit off the topic, but on the topic of what we're talking about. How our first impressions of people are often visual, how they come across to us. If, how are they dressed? How does their face look? And we judge them by that. And I was thinking about, the turtle in the aggregate is not a very attractive animal. But if you look at that carapace, as Jeff was talking about, it's absolutely gorgeous. That piece of him is gorgeous. And something, I don't know when I started to do this, maybe because I always felt myself to be a homely child or something. But I always, when I meet somebody for the first time, I try to zero in on something of beauty in that person's appearance. It might be their hair, their eyes, their ears, just something of beauty. And it really makes a big difference sometimes. And then, of course, the beauty comes in when the person unfolds and you begin to see their inner beauty. And that's the best part.
Mm-hmm.
What a lovely thought. Thanks, Judy.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's move on to our second photo here. So this second photo here is a landscape here, and this time, because the questions will revolve around inward self, it's not important where it is, but I'll give you a minute or two just to reflect on the picture and notice what you're drawn to in the photo. considering what you are drawn to in the photo, is it a place of comfort or is it a place of discomfort? Are you drawn to a place where you would want to hang out and stay, or are you drawn to the place in the photo that you wouldn't want to be? And as you feel led, if you'd like to place in the chat if it's a place of being comfortable or discomfort, feel free to comment. Considering the third time and thinking about where you're drawn to and if it's the place that makes you, the idea of being comfortable or uncomfortable. So is it representative of a place within yourself that you know, or a place that's still unknown and that the divine or spirit is calling you to explore? So is it a place of rest or a place of exploration? Would anyone like to comment on their reflections on this picture? You can raise your hand. I think we have a raised hand here.
Yeah, I raised my hand, Jennifer. I made a couple of comments about the picture in chat. I didn't say anything about the tortoise, so I wanted to, but as after you asked for the third time for a response, vocal response, what occurred to me was what attracts me to to this image or to this place is the stillness that I sense there. At first, it was a quiet, and I think the bleak, barren look of the place, the cloud, the fog. I'm not sure what time of day it is here, but and it's a photograph, not a video. But even with the photograph, I sense that there is a stillness to the water there, a stillness to the trees, just very slight movements here and there that would just sort of would be comfortable to me, instilling me and kind of calming me down. It would be limited exploration, just kind of moving around a little bit, but I think I would want to be still here and just sort of just listen.
Thanks, Greg. Anyone else have a thought or a comment on this picture?
Jeff,
It has levels of discomfort. There's a bleakness there. But I think I was most fascinated by the tree at the far right, where you see it's probably because of its proximity to us, it looks larger, and you see the reflection very clearly in the water. And it's like it's this multi-dimensional presentation, and some of you have expressed that better than I would, but that within that bleakness, within that apparent desert of life, there's also new life just waiting to be born, waiting to be burst forth, or waiting to burst forth.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. I'll just make one comment before we go to the next photo. Particularly since someone made the comment about not wanting to visit. There are certain times of the year when this is a pretty place. This is actually in Northwest Tennessee. It is a lake. It's Reelfoot Lake. Another piece too that you can't tell because this is a photo is that most of the time when you're there, if you're standing on the shore, it's very windy. From the photo, we want to take in the stillness, but it is a swamp area, so you'll see very few trees. But when all of the lotus flowers are in bloom, it can be very pretty. So this last photo is, I do my own contemplative meditative art. These colors were a response to a presentation. So it's abstract, and so this is just going to be one for personal reflection on what colors are you drawn to, and perhaps maybe what connects with you as far as perhaps making you think about something that you've already heard in these past 24, 48 hours about the idea of inward stranger. So I'll give you just a minute or two to focus on the picture. So consider the place that you're drawn to in the photograph and focus on whatever color and that the section of the photo that you're drawn to, but specifically the color. If anybody would like to share in the chat the color that you're drawn to, feel free as you're led to do so. So in thinking about the color that you're drawn to, think about what has been striking you as you've been listening to the presenters and moderators and people's comments. You know, we've been hearing about inward stranger and activism and hospitality and contemplation and how Merton related to different people. Anyone, feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to comment on the section of the picture that perhaps has been nudging you or makes you think of something, that presentation or comment that somebody's made that's really connected for you and is kind of just nudging you or sticking in your brain when it comes to Merton and this idea of inward stranger.
Jeff?
I'm still struggling, but I think this reminds me of a tropical coastal section where you have some volcanic cliffs, the erosion of the orange generated by the water moving in, the yellows and greens of the coral reef, and the blue of the deeper water, and how essentially they're all part of one system. That's just what I draw out of it, but the connection between all of those, that there's no element there that's a stranger ultimately to the other.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else want to make any comment about this picture, or anybody, if you didn't get a chance to speak on any of the other photos? Well, we have a few minutes left here.
Judith?
This is really stunning, Jennifer. I could look at this for hours and hours. I could do Visio Divina with this for days, months. But I love how they're all touching each other. They all kind of, I don't want to use the word bleed into one another, maybe connect, touch, resonate with each other. And I love that. And for me, it was the whole universe. It was mountain, it was earth, that orangey to me was the earth. The middle was kind of white water. The yellow was the sun. The sky was the blue. And those darker dots in the sky, I think, are Merton's birds, his starlings.
Thank you so much, Judith. Just as an aside, perhaps this is something for a later reflection, something I was thinking about when Carol was making her presentation, and about stranger and nobody being a stranger, but starlings were brought to the United States by the Shakespeare Society because they wanted to have the specific things that Shakespeare mentioned. And they came and they adapted, and that's why they're everywhere. As someone mentioned before, if you're in a city, they're just parking lots and everywhere, and sometimes they can be a nuisance. Well, I thank you so much. I think we've got a couple other comments here.
Gray Matthew, there you are. Matthew's there.
Okay, yeah, I love this painting as well, and I could keep looking at it. I'm very curious about what you saw in this, Jennifer. I'm assuming that, I think you said that this was your artwork. What did you see when you painted this, and then what did you see in your work that you felt was suited to this workshop and to this conference?
Well, two things I'll say. One, as far as when I did this painting, it is a contemplative reflection. It wasn't planned. I can't even tell you what the original response was. Why I decided to use this one was, I think, as Judith and Jeff both mentioned, was that each color could really speak, to a piece of Merton and his Gethsemane, experience, whether it's the literal of, brown for the brown robes and yellow for the sun, and just kind of, when you're there, the big blue sky without the light pollution, or the idea is that there are places within ourselves that are friendlier than others. I think when I did this painting, I'm sure the brown probably meant discomfort of some kind. Yellow, a little bit brighter, maybe the orange, kind of the in-between. There was something about spirit, the white section, the referent or depiction of Holy Spirit. And,
Go ahead, Jennifer.
oh, I was just gonna say, all of this piece and others that are one of a kind are actually, I have some of them available for other people's use for contemplation, that you can own the piece yourself for a donation on Buy Me a Cup of Coffee. If you want to look me up, some of my other things are there. But anyway, and they're all one of a kind.
Jennifer, when you were explaining your thoughts about this picture, it brought to mind what originally came to me. It's like I wanted to get to the blue, but to get to the blue from the other side, you had to go through the light. So it's almost like a metaphysical transformation there that came to my mind. And you spoke of it as the Holy Spirit, the white part of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for your comments. This has been a real privilege for me. It's not just my first time presenting, but it's my first time ever at a Merton conference. So I feel very privileged. But yes, you can type in Jennifer Trently, Spiritual Director, and you can find more about my work, my website, Buy Me a Cup of Coffee, my academic work on academia.edu or on ResearchGate if you're interested. So thank you again so much. Thank you, everybody.